right.
All right.
And snap.
And snap. All right, welcome to Sportishness. While John molests his loves and adores and names George, his new donkey.
I call him PFM.
PFM, Peyton frackin' Manning.
You got it.
That's the word of the week. And congratulations to Peyton Manning for being first-team selection for the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
And also to Demaryius Thomas for his first-team selection. And, of course, Von Miller. I mean, who really is surprised, actually, by those three?
No, they've all had outstanding years. So let's jump right into it. This week we got, basically, I call this guy number 2. He wants to be number 1.
Right.
And how does Denver... So Denver, we've been talking about it for... We've been talking about it for 5 weeks now. How does Denver get a bye? Well, Denver finally worked their way into a bye. They played well. Other teams fell out.
Right.
We're in great shape there. Now the question is, can we work our way into the first round bye?
Right.
So the byes are important because you get a week off, and their teams have to play the extra game. But they're also important because of home field advantage.
Yes.
The highest seeded team in any game is the home team. So if you're number 1 in the playoffs, you're guaranteed to be at home all the way through regardless of what happens. If you're number 2, there is a chance you'll play the conference game away.
Right.
So we do want number 1.
Yes. Yes, we want number 1 because you know what? It is hard for other teams to play in our barn. I mean, not to mention, like, if you're a quarterback, every time you throw an incomplete pass, having the entire stadium going, incomplete!
Oh, that's what they're saying.
Yes. I know, it sounded like frack you, but, you know, that happens sometimes too, actually.
So, I mean, no matter what we do in the playoffs, in fact, all of the AFC teams are set. We're just talking at this point about who sits where at the table.
Right.
Denver is going to sit at one end or the other, at the 1 seed, 2 seed, or can fall away out into the 3 seed if things go wrong.
Right.
So what we're hoping for, the scenarios are simple. Denver does control its own fate right now in holding on to what it has. If Denver plays well this weekend, they're playing the Chiefs, a team they should be, they're arguably the worst team in the league, then they hold their 2 seed and they're good. If they win and Houston loses against the Colts, then they fly into the 1 spot, and that's all it takes. It doesn't take like 5 different things to happen. So if you're a Broncos fan, you are rooting for the Colts, even though they got slaughtered by the Texans just 3 weeks ago.
Go Colts.
Go Colts. So I don't really think that's probable, but we have seen some wacky games here in the playoffs.
We have, and the Texans, as we've talked about several weeks in a row. Who are these guys? Are they for real? We still have lingering questions, and so you know what? I open the door to the possibility that they do lose.
Well, in the last 3 weeks, the only team they have beaten is the Colts.
Right. So. Exactly.
And if that happens, then we're in the 1 spot. Mm-hmm. And it's secure, nothing else can happen to us. Now, if we lose, things get a lot more interesting because there's still a lot of movement possible. Houston can fall away to the 3 seed. Denver can fall all the way to the 3 seed. Mm-hmm. The Patriots can fall all the way, I believe, down to the 4 seed from where they're at right now.
Right.
And 5 and 6, I think, can bounce back and forth. It's not terribly important. They're definitely caught in the wild card at this point, so they're not really playing for a ton. They're in. And if I, quite frankly, was either team, I wouldn't worry about this last game too much.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah. Bottom line is Colts and the Bengals. They're a lock for the playoffs. They're not going to get past the 3rd seed, no matter what kind of bizarre math happens. So.
We want, again, if you're gonna root for the best of all possible worlds, what we really want is to play New England as late as possible.
Yes.
New England is a tough team. I think of the 6 teams in the playoffs, New England is the one I look at and go, oh man, I don't know about them. They stomped us early on. It wasn't luck or coincidence or whatever. The other teams we've already beaten Baltimore, for example. The Texans beat us, but it was early. So. If we want to keep away from New England as long as possible, the most advantageous seeding for us is that New England, we seed 1, New England seeds 2. The 1 and 2 will not meet until the conference game.
And I think we're in violent agreement that of the 5 other teams in our conference, that it is New England that strikes the greatest fear. They have been a spoiler for us in seasons past. They've played us tough this year.
They knocked us out last year.
Exactly. They're a wicked team. So yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that the Broncos get that 1st seed, New England gets that 2nd seed, and we meet in the conference final.
So for New England to move up, New England must win. Houston must lose.
Or best yet is that the Texans knock out the Patriots and then we face.
Confused. Okay.
Then we face the Texans in the conference final.
Sure.
That would be
basically what we want to do is we want to keep them at arm's length, make them play all the way through.
Right.
And, there's a couple ways. Make them play the extra game in the wild card, which I just think makes them angry. Or
don't poke the bear.
Don't poke the bear. Or hope that along the way, one of these other teams knocks them off. We've already handled the Bengals. We've already handled the Patriots. Pittsburgh is not a very good team this year. Houston beat the crap out of the Colts. And we've talked about Houston being kind of weak. We've beaten Baltimore. So, New England. It's the X factor. They're a great team, and we want to avoid them. Anything else on the...
No, aside from, of course, the Broncos, game, which I'm going to be watching Sunday, of course, I'm also going to be keeping a close eye on that Texans-Colts game.
Okay.
I mean, that to me is the last remaining pre-off game on the AFC side.
Yes. Yeah,
all right. So on the NFC side, then,
the NFC side is not locked in. 16 teams on the NFC, 9 are still in contention for 6 spots.
Last week, and it is still, an any given Sunday thing.
Teams that should have won lost their games and kept the door open. The Giants continue their slide into oblivion. San Francisco messed up. Dallas lost to New Orleans. So we are still in a very tight race. Now, before we went on the show, we kind of looked at the schedule. We identified 2 really major games.
Yeah, they're 2 games that are like the keystone. They affect basically multiple standings around them. Probably the most important in terms of the bye week standing is the Green Bay Vikings game. And basically, for the Vikings, they're playing for their lives. They either win that game and they're in the playoffs, or they lose that game and they're going to be, they're playing left out.
Yeah.
Wow, it got me choked up inside.
It sounds like.
But for Green Bay, their impact, the impact of this game on them is whether or not they have a chance at the first or second seed. Now, the other side of it too is that San Francisco playing the Cardinals, which should be a snoozer of the game, as San Francisco beats the holy living tar out of that bottom feeding Cards team.
Sure.
But still, San Francisco, the results of that San Fran game do have some influence on what could possibly happen with Green Bay in terms of being able to get seeded there.
Well, San Francisco and Seattle are both in the same division playing for spots. So Seattle wins and San Fran loses, they swap. Seattle becomes a division winner, potentially the number 2 seed. Yeah. So they can still slide in from nowhere, just inching their way up.
God, what a incredible story that would be. I mean,
and they have, we've talked about it. Seattle has been playing hard. They've been a sneaky team, and now they've got their chance. All they've got to do is beat the Rams, who are pretty helpless and hopeless. So the other game is the NFC East game,
right? The Redskins and Cowboys game. I mean, That's such an old school rivalry right there.
Absolutely.
And to have, this season get to enjoy a winner takes all murder fest in week 17, against these 2 storied teams. Wow. But again, if the Redskins, it's not just an issue of the fact that if the Redskins win, they're going to get their spot in the playoffs, or Dallas, they get their spot. It is also the fact that it could affect Chicago. It could affect the New York Giants.
Yes, it's the Green Bay game. Green Bay is secure. If they win, they're in.
Right.
And they secure the 6th seed, nobody can kick them out of that.
Right.
So if I'm sorry, not Green Bay, if Minnesota wins.
Right. If
Minnesota wins, they're in the number 6 seed, and then the only one team from the NFC East can go, and it'll be the division winner.
Right.
But if Green Bay does win that game, which they have every incentive to do, they're playing for the 2 spot. The Vikes are playing to play in it all. So that's going to be a great game.
Yes.
But if Green Bay does win that opens the door for a second NFC East team, and it can be any of the 3.
Right.
So the Giants, the Redskins, and Dallas are all still alive. The Redskins and Dallas control their fate the most. The winner of that game gets the division. The Giants have to hope for a lot of things to happen. The Green Bay game, the Chicago game, a couple things to kind of get them in.
It's like getting those extra points on a pinball game. Never mind. I completely. Yeah, he doesn't understand either. Okay. shut up now. Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello, my ragtime gal. Okay.
That was going to be a good time. But the NFC is still... The one spot is secure. Nobody, the Falcons have gotten it, and so they've got that. So, but everything else is still in contention. 2 through 6 is still out there, and 3 teams are going to be sitting out in the cold. My guess is, based on how way teams have been playing late and what games they've got left, is chances are the NFC East is going to send a team in the 4th spot. Most likely Washington. I think Washington has really been playing hard lately. They've got, I think, the best chance based on momentum. Dallas plays so inconsistently; you don't know what they're going to. They could stomp the Redskins, sure. I'm just not looking forward to it. And I think,
I know. It would actually make me sad if Dallas wins. It's not because I'm a Dallas hater. It's because I don't think they've really earned a playoff berth this year. And if they manage to, fall over backwards into a playoff spot with their inconsistent play, then I don't know. I mean, I would feel the same way about the Giants sneaking in. The Giants don't deserve to be there either. And if they manage to fall backwards into a playoff spot, all it does is leave the rest of the NFC playoffs kind of a joke fest until they get cleared out.
Right. Now, once the Giants make it, you never know how they're going to behave. But of the 9 teams left in contention, the Giants and Dallas probably really don't legitimately belong there. I think teams like the Vikes and Washington have really come on late when they had to.
Right.
And they've made their December move.
Yeah.
And
I smell a Dallas win coming.
I'm sorry, number 2. So we're going to kind of do a quick episode this week, but NFC, completely in contention, but those are the 2 key games. The Green Bay Vikings game, most important has a lot of downrange consequences for teams. Chicago also still alive nominally. I mean, like Dallas and the Redskins, they aren't necessarily a good team right now. And I think they're also, on the offseason, we'll probably see a lot of changes from the organization. Otherwise, I think the teams that are in right now, the Falcons, 49ers, Green Bay, and Seattle have definitely earned their spots.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm really just so thrilled to have a out of nowhere story like Seattle, come into play. By the way, before we forget about it, we should also mention too that the New England-Miami game, even though Miami hasn't been much of a team, when they played several weeks ago, I thought Miami was actually, showing some good tough spirit there.
Yes.
And so I actually hold out a small chance, given the inconsistencies that New England's had of late. I hold out a chance for Miami to play a spoiler role this weekend. And gosh, wouldn't that be funny?
That would be funny.
I would laugh all the way home.
So this is the last week of the regular season. And basically, we just throw all this out because once you get to the next level, it's just... You just got to keep winning. It's a single game elimination format. The wild card teams and the teams that got to play the first week are definitely at a long-term disadvantage. But as the Giants proved last year, once you're in the tourney, anybody could advance to win the championship.
A remarkable thing, by the way, is if the Broncos managed to win a Super Bowl, that would be a 14-game winning streak that I don't think they've done except for one time about maybe 5 years ago. But I think that would set some kind of franchise record for win streaks.
We had questions a few weeks about whether they for real. They went to Baltimore. They played hard.
That was a dominating performance.
That was a great performance. They're definitely clicking right now. It's a thing. They just consistently, conservatively play. They just grind out their yards, they get their points, and they're winning games. They're not having in the first half of the season, they have to do all these wacky comebacks. But for the last half of the season, it's basically been about grinding the opponent into dust.
Right.
Slowly but surely, by the fourth quarter, dominating on every phase of the game.
Well, speaking of that, by the way, I have an article that I'm going to publish up on Sportishness, I think, later today, that basically talks about why I think Peyton Manning ought to be the league MVP. be, and it has to do with this win streak and really the kind of discipline that the Broncos have shown that I have never seen in over 25 years of watching the Broncos. The just workmanlike way that everybody shows up and plays. It's not that they're perfect. I mean, that's, in fact, one sports writer, Mike Cleese for the Denver Post, he suggested that maybe it was in fact some of the mistakes that they were making that helped to keep them honest, because they couldn't play that mind-fracking mumbo jumbo in the locker room of saying,
Somehow
we're a perfect team.
Right.
Because, hey, Manning, the great general, is throwing a pick just about every game, right? I mean, how can you be a perfect team when that happens?
Last week, of course, I'm going to throw it into double coverage. This is the easy pick.
Yes. Yeah. See these fingers? This is an over-under coverage of a corner and a safety. And there's the receiver. Yeah. No,
that didn't work out. We had our fumble, of course. This one we recovered. Overall, when you look at it, statistically, we're not doing too bad on the turnover battle at all. But it's the playoffs. Everything amps up. Got to try to eliminate mistakes. I think once you get to the playoffs, it's about how loose you play.
Right.
You get teams that go out there and they just get terrified of being in a bigger spotlight.
Right.
They put a lot of pressure on themselves and they end up performing poorly. Another very traditional thing in the playoffs to the Super Bowl is once a team gets behind a little bit, they lose their composure. Yeah, everything completely falls apart. The Broncos have been there early this season a lot of times. Even in the games they lost, they were on their way to coming back.
Right.
Another quarter of football in the games they lost. This is kind of a weird thing to say, but if there have been 5 quarters, they would have been unbeaten this year because the second half of the game, they were crunching out. They were the team that was winning.
And that actually is another thing, too, that I find completely remarkable about these Broncos is that Broncos historically haven't been much of a fourth quarter team. I mean, despite the legend of Elway,
Sure.
with the drive and all of that business. But in point of fact, they've tended to be not a comeback team, not a dominating second half team to rest too much on their laurels between games, during games. I mean, and so this constant workmanlike performance is the most impressive thing I've ever seen.
Absolutely. Regardless of what happens this season, given that this was an experiment, and nobody was sure whether Manning had a glass jaw or he was the old Peyton Manning, we got the best of all worlds. A healthy Peyton Manning, whose arm strength and accuracy improved noticeably in the first quarter of the season. Now he's very consistent, except for the picks, the giveaways.
Right.
And a team that's been steady across the board in all phases of the game. Mm-hmm. There's been some weeks where the special teams hasn't been great, or the defense hasn't been great, but overall solid. I think looking forward to next year, no matter what happens here, we're in a good position, especially given where the rest of the division is, which has a good chance of firing 3 head coaches.
Right.
Next Monday.
Let me ask you, John. In the middle of the season, would you have guessed that the Broncos would finish up with like a top 6 or 7 offense and defense? Offense and defense.
No,
combined.
not both combined. No, I because we haven't done that. We traditionally good on one side of the ball and are horrible on the other.
And that's the other thing that just absolutely strips my gears. I can't believe that these guys are playing to such a high level on both sides of the ball. And all of the coach cliche talk about the synergistic effects, from all sides, all phases of the game. I mean, you're seeing it. Part of the reason why the Broncos have a top-rated defense is that when Manning can deliver, a consistent amount of points and keep either the game close or with a substantial lead, then of course the defense can pin its ears back and get busy harassing quarterbacks, disrupting plays in risky ways.
Sure.
And
we've seen it the last 2 weeks of the garbage time pickups on the defense.
Right.
That have been good. No, the Broncos have definitely exceeded my expectations in every phase of the game. I was thinking, again, looking back now, 2020 hindsight, when they acquired Manning, I'm like, okay, even if Manning is 100% of the old Manning,
right.
From a physical skills perspective, we're still getting Peyton Manning, who in the past, from what I've been able to see, looked like a very selfish player. It was all about him when he was winning, and when things were going south, it was his offensive line, it was his coaches.
Right.
Plenty of classic shots of him on the sideline yelling at people.
Right.
And I said, well, the problem is that good Manning and bad Manning has lost the Colts a lot of playoff games over the years.
Right.
He gets angry and things get worse and worse. What we got was just kind of Terminator hybrid of physical skills, about 80%, I'd say,
right,
of Manning, and a completely new, the 100% of the leadership skills that he's always had, as far as the generaling on the field, the tactical elements of getting the players and the protection, but a brand new Peyton Manning when it comes to actually being a teammate.
I agree. I think that you know the recognition that he is not quite the player he was at his peak has caused him to actually be, I think, a better player overall, a more complete package, because he's having to encourage and mentor and rely really on his teammates to do what he no longer can as, you know, a top of form superstar quarterback, which in turn has made him, or actually allowed him to play a better and more patient game, I think.
Sure, I would agree. We're going to play strong. You know, everybody says, you know, you got to beat you got to beat the best to be the best. You know, in football especially. New York Giants are the world champions, and until they're out of the playoffs or knocked out of the playoffs, they are the team to beat.
Has there been a bigger paper tiger, however,
New England is the second best team from last year.
Right.
They lost the Super Bowl. So on the AFC side of things, they are the team to beat.
Yeah.
And they legitimately are the team to beat.
They still are, yes.
You know, it's in a perfect world, we play them right off the bat, we beat them. And then we take that confidence, we go in a Super Bowl. The reality is, I don't want to play those guys.
Yeah.
Because you never know what Belichick will show up with.
I know.
He'll show up and have like 12 cornerbacks or 11 cornerbacks and nobody else, and
Right.
somehow win the game.
Right.
Or 11 quarterbacks or 11 punters on the field at once, and somehow it works.
Right.
It's there's too much of an X factor with the Patriots. Plus, they play that fast offense that can run up to 100 plays a game, and that's a hard thing to beat.
Plus, I'm still convinced that drumming, that violent massacre of the Texans a few weeks back, I still think that was, you know, basically Belichick, you know, kind of tipping out his bag of tricks and showing some of his a game plan that nobody would expect, you know, so dumping out his playoff bag of tricks is what I'm trying to slur here.
No, I think that was a shot across the bow.
Yeah.
That, you know, we're for real, and the team that's number 1 ain't. All right, well, I think we said we're going to try to do a shorter show this week. So
Yep, shorter show. Will that do, Donkey? That'll do, Donkey.
That'll do, Donkey. Hello, my baby.
Hello, my darling. Hello, my ragtime gal.
Yeah.
Also, happy holidays and all that.
That's right.
Yep.
Hanukkah, Chanukah, and of course, happy Festivus.
Yes.
Festivus
For all the rest of us.
We're about to go try some feats of strength. So, Jonathan, this is Sportishness.
All right. See you in the first round of the playoffs.
Enjoy
Ooh,
good
that'll be
football.
so-
That's hard to say.
Yes, it is.